All right, welcome everyone. This is a Viper Training and Support webinar. Today's date is April 10th, 2013, and tonight's title is, Are You an Artist Yet? And as everyone knows who's been to our webinars or our live trading rooms, everything that we say and do at Viper Trading Systems is for educational purposes only. Futures trading, forex trading, any kind of financial instrument trading does involve risk, and there's always a risk of loss. You should only trade discretionary capital, and that is money that you can afford to lose. Nothing said in this webinar, other webinars we have, or our live trading rooms should ever be construed as trading or investment advice. And as always, everyone does trade at their own sole discretion. Any questions on the disclaimer? $50 to anybody that's memorized it and can cite it. Probably know it by now, right? All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show some charts. And we're going to go over some little bit of basics first before we get into the artistry of trading. And the reason I titled this one, Are You an Artist Yet? I think everybody that's traded with my particular way of trading in the trading room knows that I like to draw all over my charts, right? You know, it's not beautiful art as far as that goes, but it's beautiful when it rings those bells on those cash registers. Okay? And that's what we do, of course, when we trade and we make the right decisions. So we're going to show a lot of that tonight, how you can see that and trade that. All right, now I'm going to show you a chart right now, and I purposely took the date off, and you're going to see a little different. We'll put the date back on in just a couple of minutes. But what I want you to see right now is just simply a price chart. Okay, you notice that we do have the price here on it because this shows up because these are the little indicators, for instance, like our trailing stops or stealth or the guidance stops or something like that, and the price. Okay, but we don't care about that. What I really want to show here is more where you can't really see the date down here. Okay, all right. Now, let me ask a question of the team real quick. Let's pretend that this is a time of the morning that you just got up and you see this type of action on your chart. What's everybody in the mood to do right now? What does it look like you really want to do on this chart? And I won't single out any names or anything, but please go ahead and answer, you know, what you'd really like to do. You know, are we looking at longs? We looking at taking shorts? We looking at a breakout trade? What are we looking at? Because you're going to see this a lot when you're trading, by the way. You're going to get up and you're going to go, doggone it, the thing's already run on me. Is that what everybody sees there, for instance? Jump on it, but reality says patient. Right. That's the whole thing. Tell you what, I'll just mention who that is. That's Bob actually mentioned that, and that's exactly right, because your gut tells you want to jump on it, but the reality is, and that's good, you want to use patience. You want to wait for the trade to come to you, because this is the type of trade right here that will literally make you wonder if the market knows what you're thinking, because it's already run. It's already done its thing. So if it's already done its thing, why do I want to jump on this thing until it retraces? You know, granted, it could come all the way up to here, right? Okay. Well, let's draw a couple of areas that it could come to. Let's just see, you know, what we would want to do. I want a retracement on this. I mean, you know, you notice all the time in the trading room, if we miss a trade, we're going to wait for it to come back to support or up to resistance for a rollover or a roll up, okay? And that's what we're going to be waiting for, because I can see several places on this chart right here that are going to be some pretty major resistance. Let's go ahead and draw a line right across here, all right? And up here, I've already drawn the line on it from back a ways, okay? So would you want to jump into this trade right here when it could obviously only go here or maybe here? Let's go ahead and put one more line here. Maybe it'll go there. We don't know. All right. We don't know if it's going to take this out. We don't know if it's going to head up to here. But this would be considered a trade that is already run. I mean, I don't care if this thing goes all the way up above here. It's going to have to do some kind of retracement before I'm going to grab it. Okay? And if we miss the trade, then oh well. But let me show you what usually happens. let's say you got up and you thought, doggone, this thing's running away with me. Click a market order right here. Let's just go ahead and do it. We'll click a market order. It hit that area of resistance, didn't it? Now, let's look at this thing. Let's see if it goes higher. It's still looking like it could go higher, right? Except for that upside down candle. But let's go ahead and watch it. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Well, maybe it's going up. See, we got a higher swing. We're still okay. But you got in way up here. You've already given away 10 ticks. See what I'm getting at? Don't do that. That's pretty important not to do that. What I like to do when I wait for a retracement, let me just show you. We're going to wait for a thrust down, a little retracement, and then a rollover so we can draw a trend line. All right, this one didn't give it to us because it double topped. So now we've got to start over. We want a thrust down. Okay. We want a little bit of a retrace. See how it tried to not take out the bottom? Now we got our little trend line drawn. Okay, let's see how far. Okay. By the way, I want to show you something here too. I'll just about bet you. What retracement do you think that is right there? Pretty close. What are you really looking for when you get a nice thrust up? You want at least, you know, that 38.2% retracement, right? That good old Fibonacci number. Exactly, right? All right, let's look at that and see what it is. Let's just look. Fibonacci retracement. We'll go from there to there. Not quite at 38, is it? Let's see if it comes down to 38. There it is, 38%. Think somebody has some programs out there that probably know where these things are heading? Now, look at our line. We drew it pretty tight. See, we had a thrust down, tiny retracement. And let me tell you something on this. Somebody was asking this morning in the room, how do you know where to draw your lines? Because sometimes they'll get me in and then they'll stop me out. Well, what you want to do is you want to at least wait for some kind of a little thrust and retracement, even if it's a tiny one like this one right here, okay? But you also want it to retrace quite a bit. Also look at your fibs even if you can. If you got time to go ahead and throw one on there. Because when this breaks this line to the upside, I'd take this puppy in a heartbeat, okay? Matter of fact, that would get you in right there at 928.70 because it broke the trend line, okay, on the close of the bar, or if you were using even the touch of the bar. Okay, but now another time that I like it is when these candles just literally go straight down and you never get this one that goes the opposite direction for a minute. See how that one actually basically opened here, right? Tried to go up, closed here, right? That's the way that candle did. So that's kind of a little opposite candle. That's how you can draw that trend line. Okay. But if this was to actually come down, let's say every one of these candles came down, including this one here, and another one came down, and another one came down, then I'm going to draw that puppy as tight as I can right along those candles. And I'll show you some areas that you can do that, because that's pretty important to be able to do that. Okay, let's go ahead and take this trade though. All right, we're in. We're going to take any kind of a hit up into any of these areas of resistance up in here. All right, you're going to naturally want to protect your coin. See it coming up there? Coming up to resistance. It hits resistance. You got a trend line already drawn. You can get out of that trade. If that trade didn't ratchet up before it breaks a trend line, you can just get out of the trade, because what is the trade more than likely with what you're seeing here going to do? I mean, you see it all the time. Well, I got in, I got 25 ticks, and then they took me back to break even. I talk to people that do that, and if you trade one contract and you don't draw your trend lines on your charts, you'll be giving up quite a bit of money, because look what this trade actually did do. Came down, didn't it? Tested support. Okay, tested support. And by the way, we actually had the room open about this time this morning. This is actually this morning's chart. I'm going to go ahead and put the time axis and all that back on. Bear with me a second. I've got it transparent right now is all. We're going to put it back to black. All right, and we'll show it. All right, now let me ask a question. If you were to take a trade like this, couldn't you clearly have made a very, very decent profit on that trade right there? You could be one and done. I mean, if you think about it, that is not a bad trade. I mean, that's what did we say that was? You know, some of the problems with trading is over trading, right? It kind of gets nice though to keep, you know, trading here and there. And if you know what you're doing, it's not a bad idea. But if you start getting a trade or so that doesn't pay you, then the best thing to do is turn it off, right? All right, but let's say you got in there at, I don't know, 928.70 or 80, all right, and you got out right here at 930.30. That's a pretty good trade, isn't it? 28.80 to 30.30 is 15 ticks, isn't it? That's a $300 trade basically before your slippage and your commission. Okay? And if you don't see these things literally pop up and take out these highs, what are they usually doing? They're going to retrace. You're always going from resistance to support or support to resistance. And I don't care if it's in an area this big, like we've got now, like so, or if you're in some of this little choppy type stuff. We'll show some more of that in a little bit. But when you go to resistance, you're going to check support. So what's our job as a trader? We want to get ready for another trade, don't we? Now this is one of my favorite trades here. I watch for this one. See how those candles went straight down? It's hitting support right there. That's a beautiful trend line, by the way, just drawn right along those highs. And you get in the trade right there. See there how a trend line works? You get in the trade, and where would you put your stop? Well, if this was going to break down, we had a high up here. We had a same high, basically, within a tick anyway. We have a low right here, and it only wicked it. See how the wick is right there at the bottom of that? So technically, that bottom held. If you get to looking at candles like that, you're going to see this all the time, by the way. You know, that's the market's trying to get people into breakout trades. You know, for instance, somebody was saying, I'm going to short this puppy if it takes out this swing right here. So what do? They wick it by 4 ticks and then pop it up. That's why we Viper traders don't take trades like that. We will wait for a thrust down, a retracement, and then take the rollover. Because that is a fake out breakout. Now granted, with our green background, you wouldn't have taken that short anyway. But what I'm telling you is there's a lot of traders out there that take that exact trade, and they wonder why their account just keeps getting emptied. We even run into it in the room all the time. Gary, what are you looking at, short or long? Well, look at the chart. We've got blue bars, green background, blue platinum even, which even if you don't have the platinum subscription, we still show it in the trading room for the mid band and the phantom and the money band. Okay, so we've got all that telling us, and guidance dots, by the way. So what would I be looking to take this trade? I'd be looking to take a break to the upside, and that's why I draw on my charts. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this trade too. You ready for it? Okay, if we take this, I don't see any resistance until right here. See it right there? And that's very little resistance, but let's go ahead and draw a line just to see if it takes it out. All right. We're still in. By the way, you put your stop just under here. I never like to actually have a line broken and then roll over and either take the low out or break my trend line. See, this could actually roll over and take out your trend line and start heading down. But as long as it's breaking my trend line, I'm a happy camper. All right, let's look at it. Okay, you got highs right across there that are exactly equal. You got a low right down here that's not been established yet. You're still in the trade. Now, you might have wanted to take a little bit of coin off the table on this one already, because see how it did 6 or 7 ticks? One of my rules of thumb on that is if I get 6 or 7 ticks and they come back to cost, I'm out. Okay, let's see how many ticks that was. Looks pretty good though. So you got in at 28.50, went up to 29.50. That's a 10-tick trade. Okay, and it hit it 3 times. So you'd bank at least one of your contracts, right? And then what you want to do is you want to watch and see, okay, are they going to take this high out, or are they going to take this low out, or are they going to take me back at cost? Okay, so let's just watch. Say they didn't take us out at cost because we're in down here. They missed us. But you clearly, by the way, let me show you something here. The reason I drew that, see how you had this thrust up and retrace? That's your trend line right there. Okay, if you want to get out of this trade early, then you can draw a trend line under these lows of these bars, and you might even get out a little early on this, because unless this takes out this resistance right here where I drew that green line, we're going back down to support, and we'll probably take out this trend line. But let's just go ahead and stay with it as long as it stays with the trend line. Okay, the trend line's fine with me. Okay, you're still getting a higher low so far. Seeing the little thrust, retrace, thrust, retrace. Don't like it now as much. See, it's coming down there to test here. This is the established swing, and technically not really established, but by 4 ticks, maybe even 3. See it right there above those highs. So clearly, if this takes out this trend line, we're getting out of this trade. Okay, I'll just take the trade off the table if it does. And we're out of the trade right there. Let's see, how would you add in above the candle that touched the trend line? Well, of course, you didn't even get your touch of your trend line until what you've got to watch for. Let me just show you something that I watch for each and every day that we trade, because this is an important area right here. Let me just draw a line. All right, see this little area right here? You've got these highs right here. Well, at the moment, when you got this first thrust, you got your 10 ticks, right? All right, see, your trend line could technically be through here, but they haven't really taken out the swing yet, and they haven't taken out the swing to the upside. So this isn't established yet. All right, so I give it that wiggle room because I'm back at cost on my last part of my contracts. All right, but once it tries to test it again, then I'm knowing that pretty soon I'm going to get a trend line. See it right here? And then they're going to try to test it again. See it? And then what happens then is you got your trend line. Now this just took out resistance by, what, 1 tick? Okay. Now if you see this kind of choppiness like this, you can always, you've already got 10 ticks on the trade, you can always put a trend line right underneath there even. You know, if you don't want to stay with this trade, because a lot of times they will come back like that and they will take you out. See? Okay. And then our job as a trader is what? We want to try to get it again, don't we? All right, let's say we got 10 ticks, and this one here, let's see what we got. If we got in at 928.50, we got taken out 929.20, or if you waited for the close of the bar, you got down all the way down here. Okay, on the way I drew that trend line, that would have gotten you out right there with money line. Okay. But you can also see these trend lines broken, and you can just click the market order too. All right, let's see if we can get another trade. Cursor pointer. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, I see a trend line right through there. Let's go ahead and draw it. Where's our ray? Lost my ray. All right, that's our trend line right at the moment, see it? But then this is one of my trades that I like really well, okay? Because see how this dropped like this, and you get a chance to get a better price. Now watch it. All right, see how it's got that trend line right there? Let's go ahead and take it one more time. This is the way I like to draw it. Now keep in mind, this is a fairly aggressive trade, but we're chopping around, aren't we? See if I can get that pulled over. One thing about it, when you're trading live, you got the right side of your chart. You can, still draw your line. You can't draw it when you're showing things back. Let's see, does Moneyline work on rays, or does it have to be a line? Ken, Moneyline works on lines only at this very moment, but in a couple of days, it's going to work on rays. We're having it redone so it'll work on rays. And I think you'll like that. We've had some people ask if we could leave it as a line also. I'd like to actually see if it could be done where we could change it to a line or array in the parameters, but I'm not sure if that's something that'll be that easy to do. It may be best just to have two indicators. Let's see if I missed a question here just a second. Okay, that's fine. All right, so we've got a trend line drawn right through here, right? And we're going to watch and see if we can get another trade. All right, I'm in. Okay, now let me ask you a question on this particular one right here. How long do you want to keep this trade? All right, let's watch the candle. Okay, I can see a trend line right there. All right, is it going to go all the way up to here? We don't know. Does anybody know if it's going to go up to there? It may go a lot higher, right? But let's just stick with the trade and see what it'll give us. Okay. All right, so let's go draw a trend line. At least get 10 ticks or so, or even up to the swing. Let's see if we can get that. Okay, it's coming back a little bit, so that candle closed to the downside. Let's see what it does next. All right, that is not taking you out at cost yet. Let's see if we can get a candle back to the upside. There we go. All right, now let's draw us a trend line along in here. Let's go ahead and do it. Like so. See how beautiful that is? Thrust, retrace, didn't take us out at cost, and you get you a nice little trade. And by the way, that's at 8:30. So who knows if we would have taken that or not, but that was an obvious way to trade it though. Everybody see that? These work, believe me. They work quite well. Will we miss on some of them? Absolutely. You're not going to get on every one of them. And especially one reason is because sometimes you're looking at other charts too, right? And you're going to miss some of these. You know, now if you're trading a particular chart, then the best thing to do is hone in on these exact settings, these setups, and then look for them. And then get those trades because they can be nice monster trades, right? All right, let's go ahead and see where we'd get out of this trade. We could very possibly get out of this trade. Are these Oklahoma times, Minaj? Yes, they are. See, 8:30 in the morning is the open of the market for Oklahoma time, Central Time. 9:30 is Eastern Time, and of course, 6:30 is Pacific Time. All right, everybody see now how we can get out of this trade? Remember, we talk about when they thrust up, where are we looking for? We're looking for resistance. Well, let's go ahead and take some of these lines off so we can see what's going on. Bear with me a second. We might leave that one up for a minute. All right, so we've got a trend line, right? We know that it can't break this trend line on our gusto trade. But what if it doesn't take out this swing? That's the next stop on the bus, isn't it? Pretty much. Well, let's see what it does. All right, that's pretty much at resistance. You could definitely start drawing a trend line underneath your lows, right? We always call those, remember? What happens when they go to resistance? What's the normal thing that happens when they go to resistance? They go back to support, don't they? So that's the whole idea. If you took this trade that I just drew on the chart, got a nice trade, right? Never got taken back out at cost, and you got your great trade going right there. They're going to retrace. Absolutely. Now, if this thing just blows up here, stick with it, okay? But the trend line bit is the best way to do it. So let's go ahead and draw a ray underneath there. It's going to have rays all over it before we get through. And that's actually even a little tighter than that. See, that's under those lows, but you could even go under these lows. Let's draw another ray. Okay. Still going up, isn't it? Starting to reverse. You're getting that candle reversal. Remember, we always talk about when they get these tops taken out just by a little bit, be careful, right? You want to be careful. Wait for a retracement. That's the most important thing to do, right? So let's see what happens here. All right, I'm going to take out the trade either when it crosses this with a close or if it touches this one or the other. okay? Because we're not sure how high this is going to go. We're waiting on a retracement. All right, we're out, okay? Nice trade though, wasn't it? All the way up. Okay, so now what are we going to do? We're not going to just jump in because another bar forms to the upside. We've got to have a retracement. We just hit a high. They barely took it out. So what are they trying their best to do right this very moment? Aren't they trying to come down and test some area of support? Well, we know we've got support here. We know we've got support here. We know we've got support where else? This area. See it where they just came from. All right, so let's see what happens. Don't remember, but let's just look. Let's get rid of some of the rays because they're not as important now. See, we took the trade off the table, right? All right, so we'll take that one off, that one off. Don't care about that one anymore, right? Because obviously we took it out. Anytime I get a nice thrust like that, I'm going to take some coin on some contracts. All right, now if you want to stick with this trade, what I would personally do, if they came back on top of that swing right there and didn't sit there, let's just see if they did. See how they just bounced off of it a little bit? But if they take that out like they're trying to do there, I would get out of that trade. See there, because they took out support. And of course, there's even our original trend line, which they took out. Okay? You can always tell what they're going to do if you just look at charts long enough. All right, so let's see if we can get back in another trade. It's 8:35. We got our zone box drawn, right? Got our nice little zone box drawn. Okay, we've got our initial thrust retrace, so we've got a trend line. Let me go back on this a little bit because you can see it. See where we came down? We tried to bounce, so that's where I drew my trend line. See it? See my trend line? So let's see if we can get in this trade. All right, we're going to watch for a nice little move down. That's our trend line right here, by the way. Okay, that's our trend line to take if it possibly breaks to the upside, or we want to see if we can get a little bit lower. We're at this area of support here. There's our trend line that we wanted to get in, wasn't it? Right here. Actually, what you could do on this one, we drew this in the room this morning. This was right after the market, pardon me, after the open of the market. You could actually take this trade here on an aggressive move, but keep in mind that if you didn't get up to resistance of some kind and it rolls over, you'd always get back out of it. I don't personally like that trade right there because it's so close to the bell. I like to get a little bit deeper. We did get deeper in the room this morning, as a matter of fact. I'm pretty sure if I remember right. Yeah, came down. And where do we have support on this chart? Right in through here. Right there, right? Draw a trend line, I'll bet you. Let's see if it fits it. I'll bet it does. There's a low, and there's a low. Oh, right on the money. That probably will bounce there. Remember, we did that in oil that one day and watched it. Now, it doesn't mean they won't take it out, believe me, but trend lines are good to break. Okay, you had a thrust down, a little retrace, you got past the 830 bit, you drew a nice trend line, and we actually got this trade this morning in the room. Remember it? Comes up nicely. All right, does your first little thrust retrace, so you draw your trend line. We had that trend line drawn in the room this morning. We try to get up to here. If we can't, we're going to take it out on the trend line break, aren't we? Okay, so let's see what happened. Trend line break, we're out. Okay, if you got extra contracts, you can always take them out at cost, or if they take out a swing. You see that little swing right there? Just that's where you got your initial trend line drawn. Okay, and then what can you do? You can look for another trade. Because what is the market doing? It's chopping. It's going side to side, isn't it? You got high here, a little higher high, which faked the breakout traders, thought it was going up like crazy at the time. You notice that they'll always get the breakout traders in, then they'll come back to support, then they'll break out. Lots of times you're going to see that, by the way. If you watch these charts a lot, you will see it. All right, let's see if we can get another trade. Okay, we got a little thrust down. Okay, and there's our trend line right here. Let me go ahead and position it just a little bit better. Didn't draw it quite right, so I'm going to draw a ray on it. Right through there. It's taking out support a little bit, but here's your support over here. Let's see if we can get a trend line break to the upside. We're still looking for longs, right? Obviously, our chart has not changed directions yet. You know, we had a high here. We got a higher low, lower high, lower low, but we're still pretty much staying in the same area of your support, right? So you expect it still to go up. If it doesn't, then you know, we'll wait for it to thrust down, change the red background, and all that good stuff like we do on a short trade. Let's take this trade one more time. In. Okay, we're going to go back to cost on the rest of ours once we get about 8 or 10 ticks. There it is. All right, so you could move your next contract to right at cost, right? You'll hear Rich say that a lot when he's trading too. You know, he likes to get a nice move, and then he goes back to cost to see if he's going to get a gusto move. Do you always get a gusto move? No, you don't. But sometimes you do, right? All right. Now let's see if we can actually watch this and watch our swings, because where is it heading? To here. And then if it breaks there, to here. Candle tried to come down. Doesn't that give you a nice trend line to draw on that trade? Okay, let's draw us a trend line. Let's see what it does. That's close enough for right now. And see how it perfectly did there too? It's amazing how they'll do that. See that first thrust retrace? That's actually where that trend line went. Let's watch it and see if it closes below it. That one's closing below it, but I still wouldn't take that trade off the table until it took this out myself. I like a pretty good trade, and it'd have to take that out by a couple of ticks at least, because it might come back and set on this swing before it heads back up. Okay, so if you want a gusto trade, you pretty much got to do that. You got a nice thrust already. You can definitely take off one of your contracts, right? Just in case it comes all the way down and takes you out at cost. Let's see what it did. Okay, we're still okay. Just barely tested that swing, but you would be out of some contracts just in case it comes back. Okay. We even mentioned that in the room this morning. I bet you, I even remember saying it exactly. I'll bet you it wicks it by a tick. Remember that area right there? Did it wick it by a tick? Seems like they've got some programs out there that know what they're doing, don't they? 929.70 to 929.60, one tick. Okay. Then let's see if it went up. All right. Now, let me ask you a question. Could you pretty much start drawing your trend line? You know, we adjust these trend lines in the room, right? Because we're trying to go for gusto trades, and we're watching these swings. All right, let's readjust our trend line. I'm going to take that off. Do another ray. And I'll kind of go along right under there, okay? Let's watch it and see what we can get. Okay, we definitely want to be banking some coin here, right? Because they obviously hit a high, right? Now, if you want to stay for a gusto trade, keep in mind you can do one of two things, all right? If you want to take some contracts off, let's say that you started with 3. Let's just give a typical example of 3 on this trade, and you got a nice trade. You took some profit, right, at 10, 12 ticks, 10 ticks, whatever you do, all right? Or when the candle reverses even, which is what a lot of traders do. See how this got your little thrust up? First candle reversed, came back a little further, didn't it? See that candle reversed right there? That's what a lot of traders look for, is to get out of some of their contracts. All right. You could also take another contract or so off if it takes this trend line out. I'm not saying to get out of the trade totally, because where is the swing that's telling us if this is going to go up or down? Right now, we've got a swing right here that's been identified. See it right here? This one started to be, but it couldn't be, so they took it down, and then they went up. That's why they'll wick people out of trades. And we called that live as it was happening too. So we're not going to get out of this just because it wicks it. We want to see if it'll go up and test these highs. All right, so let's watch. All right, now if you wanted out a part of them right there, You could, okay? Let's say that you got out of one more contract right there, all right? But couldn't you ride this trade along this trend line to see if it's going to go for your last contract? Believe me, you can a lot of days, because here's your swing right here. And let's just see what it did. Okay, we kissed our trend line perfectly that we drew earlier. See right through here. Taking it out a little bit, but this swing is not identified right here just yet, is it? Same old story, isn't it? That swing right there is not identified because it didn't take out the high. So they're going to test it, and they're probably going to wick it. Let's see what they did. They're right even with it. They didn't wick it just yet. Let's bring a line and see if they're going to wick it. See, it just tested its all, right? And that happens too. So you're still in the trade, aren't you? See how beautiful that can work out? Watch these swings. You know, get out of some contracts when you're going in sideways stuff like this. Just like we showed here, that was exactly the way we traded that today, by the way. Okay? But when you start seeing these higher highs and higher lows, you know, in your mind, just start drawing these ellipses because they're dollar bills. I'm going to change this to a blue. We'll change it to, let's see, yeah, cyan's good. All right, you start seeing this. Aren't you starting to really make some decent money? Once it takes out highs, you can go ahead and check that swing. See it right there? Swing's not identified just yet. Where's your swing right this very moment on this chart? Anybody know? It's not here. It's all the way down here. And that's a long drop. But what about a gusto trade? How high could this thing go? Well, it's going to potter up, or it's going to finish its trade, and then you're going to get some kind of retracement, right? All right, so let's just see how high it goes. All right, see how it wicked the swing again? See, it didn't identify that one right there, so what did it do? It wicked it. Does that continually, doesn't it? See there? That's why people get taken out of trades. They put their stops right there at a little swing, and they get taken out, and then they chase it, and then they retrace on them. See how high we can go. Pretty sure, yeah, we were still in this trade this morning. Okay, still going higher. There's a swing, not quite identified yet, but this swing's identified. Okay. Higher you go. Now that swing's identified right there. Okay, let's see how high it can go. I'm going to get rid of some of these rays because we don't want it to get too confusing. Get rid of this one and that one. We don't need them anymore. All right, so our swing is right down here. Everybody see that? See where we can see this just pottering up, right? Wasn't a swing, wicked it, pops up, comes down, that swing held, comes up. Let's see where it gives up the ghost. Okay, it's taken out that little swing right in through here, right? Let's see if we can go a little higher, though. We've got a swing down here that's been identified. Let's draw a line under it, as a matter of fact. Now, that's giving up quite a bit on the rest of your trade, though, isn't it? But see what will happen if you don't? Peter, on your question, we'll go over that in detail, as a matter of fact, if you don't know that, because this is an extremely important part of trading, in my opinion. And, you know, this is my particular way of trading. I've been trading this way for quite some time now. But these swings become identified, and by the way, they're micro swings is all they are, okay? When I'm talking about even these micro swings, you'll see, we call it pottering. If you look at Harry Potter's forehead, it looks something like this. it's a lightning bolt, isn't it? Anybody that's, I don't watch the series or anything, by the way, but it kind of looks like that, doesn't it? And that's what we call pottering. Somebody coined that phrase in the room one day, and it just stuck with us all, so we still call it that. That's what we call the potter right there. Okay? And if you look at where this is pottering up, so to speak, see it thrust, little retrace, barely takes out a high. So what does it do? It checks the low, checks it by a tick even to get some people out of the trade, pops up again, makes a fresh one, pops up again. Okay, our swing is all the way down here right at this very moment. Pardon me, right at this moment. That swing's right there. Because if you were to draw this on your chart, you'd see it do like this. See where my cursor's going? Like that. All right, so when we get another one, we're hoping it's going to be higher than this one for a continued trend. Okay? By the way, stealth is still green too. I mean, it hasn't even changed, you know, color. It hadn't changed to a vacated area of it or anything. So we're looking to stay in this trade as long as we can. And when you get to where you can notice this, you're going to get some of these monster trades. You know, if they hit a resistance area and they pull back, then you're breaking a trend line. But notice how each resistance area is taken out. Just taken out, taken out. That's the type of trend that traders dream of. And when traders get these with a few contracts, they pay off big time. Okay? Well, let's watch and see if this quits pottering real quick. All right, see how that took that out by a tick? So that's your low now. Still your low right this very second. Okay, that's your low, but it has not been identified. Now, what I mean by identified is this has to take this swing out right here by at least, I like to have at least 6, 7, and even 8 ticks. And I'm real happy when I see 10. Because when they go 10 above a swing, then you can pretty much count on that swing holding on a pullback. Okay, you'll notice that they just kind of potter up. All right, let's watch it. All right, you got a little double top right there, right? All right, but your swing's right here, not identified yet. Your swing that's identified is all the way down here. Thrust, pullback. See what it does. Okay, not identified yet because it's only 3 ticks. That's identified, not enough for me, but that's 5 ticks above it. So what I would do in a case like that, you'd watch it, because anytime they pull back from these, you want these support levels to hold. Okay, right this very moment, that's kind of a support level right there. See it on the micro? And for sure, this is a support level to me because it did break it. It did what we call ratcheting up. Okay, and when it ratchets up like that, what's it going to do? It's going to come back and test a support level. Either the micro one here or the little bit larger one here. Okay, and I would definitely have my out on that on a trend line break, and you could draw the trend line under those lows and you get out somewhere in there. And by the way, when you get a thrust up and you start pulling back like this, guess what? You're ready for another retracement. So a good trader's out of that trade. Matter of fact, we got out of that trade this morning in the room, and I didn't take the next trade, but I'm going to show you where to take it. Okay, because we were trading oil. Remember, oil inventory came up about 15 minutes after this. And if you trade oil inventory, you don't really have time to watch, you know, Russell and stuff like that. But let's see if we can get another trade on this. All right, we're going to watch for a same type of a deal we always watch for. Got to have a thrust down. Now that's pretty good, by the way, for even a total. See, that came down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 candles. So if you wanted to take that trade somewhere in there, you certainly could. That's a tight trend line. That's an aggressive trend line. All right. What I like to personally do, especially when they've had, and we called this live in the room too. We had already had 1, 2, 3, 4. That was our 5th yellow bar probe. I said it was 3 in the room this morning because I was thinking these were the 1, 2, and then 3. But this was actually yellow bar, blue bars, yellow bar, yellow bar, yellow bar. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 yellow bar trades, 5th yellow bar. Okay, so we expect this to go deeper. All right, where's our support level? Well, let's see, we drew an area that's pretty good support right there. See it right there on the chart? And then we'll draw a trend line and see if we can get in this puppy. All right, so I would expect it to at least come down to here. All right, it's given us pretty much our trend line. See it? See how you can draw the trend line across got your initial thrust down, your little retrace. So, kind of position your line right along in there, and you're in. Okay, now that may be a little bit early. I don't know what the market did. If that's early, then what I normally like to do is if it comes down a little further, I'll even take some more and add it to it. We'll see if it does that. Yellow bars, red stealth right there. Still looks good enough to me though. I would probably, on this trade right here, that's a trend line break, and I'm going to take that trade. Okay, it gave some ticks. I'm good to go on that trade. See how that works? Beautiful trade, as a matter of fact. It's going right to there. If it can. If it can't, it'll go to the bodies, which is right there. Looks like about where it went, didn't it? All right, where would you get out of this trade? You get out right there, couldn't you? Because it's breaking a trend line. I can see the trend line is breaking this very second. See it? Right through there. And that's the way you trade that. All right? Now, let me ask a question. Anybody that trades this way, can you see how you couldn't possibly make decent coin? Because you have a trend line right here that's getting ready to break. Matter of fact, it already broke. When I call in the room, by the way, when I see a trend line breaking, it's because you see it with your eye. You can draw it if you want, but I don't think I would have been in that trade much longer than that, because what happens when you go into probe trade time? What does it normally do? See these? It goes into this choppy stuff, doesn't it? So when you get probe trades, you're not looking as much for gusto type moves as you are getting some ticks. That's still an excellent trade with 3 contracts. That's a $300 bill at least. Probably more than that. 33.40 to 34.50, 11 ticks at least, maybe 10 if you got out right there when it took out the line. But guess what? You look for another entry. Another one of my favorite entries. Oh, that must have been a high energy time too. See that entry right there? Gave you a nice little quick move. Now, did that trade work out? Not sure if it did or not. But if it breaks a trend line like that, I'm going to more than likely take it, because it came right back down into support, and I'm happy with a trade like that. Now, sometimes you won't get, all the money in the world on a trade like that, okay? But when it breaks a trend line like that, I'm figuring that it's at least going to go up and test resistance. And if it tests resistance, I'm a happy camper. If it tests higher resistance, I'm even a happier camper. See what it did. I don't even know. We didn't trade this. We were trading oil right at this time. Okay, got a few ticks. Making me a little nervous, but you got in right here. Stopped right here. Still okay. Still okay. Still okay. That's where I'd even add, by the way. See that trend line right there? That's where I'd add some contracts to it. I'm added. I'm going to take off some that I added right there because it just hit resistance. I don't care if it goes much higher, because those added contracts, I don't want them to come back to cost, because I just added them and they made me say a couple $100 or whatever. I'm not going to let them come back and take me out at cost. Okay? And then if you want to go for a gusto trade, what do you got to do? We got to see if it's going to retrace and give us the same thing we got earlier. See there? Hit your high of the day right there, didn't it? And you could clearly see that you get out on a trend line break right through there if you wanted to. It does this all the time. I mean, trading is just virtually the same thing each and every day that you're trading. It's just amazing how well it works. By the way, did everybody get what I meant by identified on a swing? Because again, I think that's pretty important. Rich calls it ratcheting up or ratcheting down. It's virtually the same thing. Anytime you're trading, you're wanting a trend to naturally be higher highs and higher lows for a long trade, and lower highs and lower lows for a downtrend, right? Long trend, up, downtrend, uptrend, downtrend, right? So that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get these trades, and then stay with gusto trades, by the way. You know, for instance, if you got down here, down in this trade right here, who's to say this thing didn't go up the rest of the afternoon? I don't even remember what it did, but it could have. All right, so what are you looking for? You're going to look for the thing we called the potter, right? Okay, you got your thrust up, you got into resistance. All right, do you want to get out of this trade yet, though? See, it wicked the swing a little bit. See it? Does that a lot. Breaks again. Might add some more contracts, by the way. If it broke a trend line. Take some off when it hits a swing. And then just watch this thing potter up. Don't even know what it did. Let's see what it did. Bingo. Took out. So there's a low right there. Don't you hate when you miss trades like this? And you can keep them with something like Viper. It's a beautiful way to trade. I love it. All right, now this thing's going to the moon right now. How long do you want to stick with this trade, by the way? You know, I'm not thinking that this trade's going to go forever, because remember, we've talked about this in the webinars before. See that reversal candle right there? You know, when you get a nice thrust up, watch it pull back. I'll bet you it pulls back at least somewhere in here, more than likely. Anybody want to bet on that? Well, we're not betting people, are we? But let's see if it did. Candle reversed. Don't they do that a lot? Breaks again, a trend line. See your trend line that I drew? I drew these, I don't remember exactly, probably sometime this afternoon, so I can show this tonight. But see how these trend lines you just wait for the little thrust down, little retrace, draw your trend line. Okay, got your stop underneath the swing. Doesn't cost you much, does it? Try to get up to a swing if you can. There it is. Profit. Stay with some contracts, or at least one contract at cost, and see if you can go higher, because we don't know. It could go higher, right? How high did Russell go? Anybody remember today? We're almost running out of time. I want to show you what kind of trades you could make on this. We've already showed several, but look what Russell did today. Trend line break. Remember, if you get in something, you know, don't go chasing, just like we talked about when we opened this conversation up, this webinar up. If you walked in to your room and you said, oh my gosh, you know, TF is going to the moon, I'm clicking 15 market orders, that's exactly the time they're going to kick you in the teeth. Because when it's thrust up already, it's going to pull back. It will break a trend line, and it will give you another trade. They just do that. That's the way the markets work. Okay? So get out of the habit of jumping in when they're already done their thing. You know, I kick myself sometimes, like I think, why in the world wasn't I watching that chart? Now I got to wait for a retracement. But you got to put that in your mind, that you have to wait for that retracement. Because if you don't get a retracement, and what I mean by retracement is at least with the yellow bars or the red bars on a long trend. And on a short trend, naturally your bars are red, right? So you'd want at least a yellow bar or a blue bar. And you can clearly draw your trend line. And I like a tight trend line only if I can count about that many candles. See what happens there? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles. That's 24 ticks approximately. So I expect if it breaks a trend line, it's at least going to give me 10 of those ticks back, because even if this did a 50% retracement, let's just pretend this moves over. All right? Everybody knows that you get retracements, right? They're going from support to resistance. If they can't make resistance on this long move, they're going to come up halfway and then they'll roll over, won't they? Because let's say that this little move down, they decide to break this line. Then you're figuring, okay, I expect them at least to go 50% of that, which is right through there. Okay? And if they roll over, you can get out of the trade. See how 50% started kind of holding, they're trying to pull. But if they don't pull back, then you just try to get to resistance, because resistance is where you're going to take some coin off the table. Okay? And of course you can draw your trend line along those lows, like so. Let's just draw it to get out of partial contracts anyway. See, this trade, you got a nice partial contract, and if it breaks the trend line with a close, you get out of the trade, at least part of it. And if it takes you back at cost, you get out of the rest of your trade, right? Because when they go into consolidation, what are they going to do? They're going to go from resistance to support. So when they come back down to support, you might want to buy them again. See, they broke a trend line again. See the little thrust retrace? Another trend line break. Target. Didn't take us out. And came close to that target, and there probably is going to be our target right there. See it right across there? And you can see a trend line again for the gusto trade. Are they going any higher? I don't know. I didn't trade it, but let's just draw a ray and see. Still closing. I don't like that too much. But if you were to get in that trade right there, okay, didn't get taken out, you got at least 10 ticks, you might take that trade off the table right in through here. Okay? And then wait for another retracement, very possibly a good yellow bar, and see if you can get back in it. Or this is your swing right here, not identified yet. Remember, it hadn't taken out the high. All that's done is tested it. So this could go a little lower. Maybe it won't take us out at cost. Maybe it will. That's actually our cost right across there, so it's pretty close to it. Let's see if we can stay with it. Now, I'd probably kill that trade. And I more than likely would get back in it if it takes out that trend line right there. See it? Even if I killed it, I can see a trend line developing right there, and I might take it again. That's the whole idea of trend lines, right? Because a trend line, what I expect them to do when I draw a trend line is to give me a trade. If they don't give me a trade and they roll over quickly, I'm out of them. You know, there's sometimes it'll only be 3 or 4 ticks, because if they break a trend line, I like them to continue breaking my trend line. If they decide not to break my trend line, then I'm going to either use the swing as my stop, see if I can get 10 ticks or get up to resistance. But if they roll over and actually took my trend line out, then I'd get out of the trade for sure. You know, and they might do that quickly sometimes. Let's see, the push to SR after the pause at 50% seems to be reliable to follow through often. I think so. Hugh, on your question there, I've found that anytime you've had a ratchet up, see, like we had a high here and we had a higher high here. If you get a pullback and they break a trend line, more than likely they're going to test resistance, right? They've already checked support. See it right there? So if they break again, if this was to do different than what I see it doing here, and let's say that candle formed down instead and it just decided to take this swing out, well, there's another swing right here, a tiny one. Nevertheless, it's a swing right here. I would not let them take that out. See it right there? That little micro swing. You got in here. Even if I'm going to try this trade a little bit, give it a little wiggle room, I wouldn't let it take out that swing, because that swing was identified because it took it out by at least 20 ticks. And see, that's a micro swing, but it's nevertheless, it's still a swing. It's a potter. You know, you can clearly see that it's a potter, right? See a little thrust up, a little retracement. That's like a little potter move. And then it thrust up again, didn't it? Like so. So that swing I would not let get taken out. And I really am very cautious when they break a line that I've drawn. If they instantaneously break it and then roll that candle and take that one out. A lot of times I'm out of the trade. But I may get back in it if I see another trend line broken again. And that's the whole idea of trading trend lines, because you're going to nail probably 75 to 80% of them if you do it this way. Let's see, so you would have a 1-point stop on that trade. Well, Peter, on your question, it's not necessarily a 10 tick or 15 tick or anything like that. When I take trend line trades, which are more aggressive trades that we're teaching tonight, pretty much if they break the trend line, you know, to give an example, this trend line right here, see where you get that first little pop down, the tiny retracement, see the little micro retracement there? And I draw my trend line. I'm in it right there, okay? And I've got my stop right here. Because where's my next stop down, by the way? If I was to not hold this one and I thought it was going to go lower, well, for one thing, if they're going to break my trend line, I don't want them to go lower. And clearly, the previous swing that held was here. And this would be quite a stop, and I wouldn't do that. 936.30, see, that's way down there. That's 15 more ticks than where you got in, so that's a good 20 some odd tick stop. Would not do that. If they were to break this trend line, pop up and then roll over and take that swing out, I might give them 2 ticks, because they'll usually wick them if they're going to do anything by about a tick, and 2 ticks will usually save it, but I wouldn't give them all the way down to here. Okay? To me, when they break a trend line, they better keep breaking that trend line. Let's see, Ken, on did I see your trading plan question? Have you ever done a trading video on developing a trading plan using that Viper method? Well, actually, the trading videos pretty much are just the webinars. I'd love to develop an auto trader that would do this. You know, if I could somehow come up with a way to do this automatically, it would just print money hand over fist. But there's some discretion to it, because you're looking at, you know, like, for instance, let me just show you. Like when you get a move up like this, that many candles, well, are you going to let it pull back that much? No, when we're in that trading room, we do this all the time, don't we? Let's say that we were watching, bear with me a second. Let's say you were watching this, and you said, okay, I'm in it from way down here again. You know, you could be in any time. I mean, we've gotten in several times, right? But if this did this, don't you hear me all the time saying, I'm going to be drawing a trend line, and that trend line's tight, because those candles went. Everybody and their dog got in that trade then, didn't they? So guess what? Gary and good old Viper traders are saying, you know what? They break this trend line right through here, and I'm going to exit that trade and get back in again. And there you're out. See what I mean? And then you're in. Works all the time, believe me. I love trading this way. Now, I don't short it when it breaks a trend line, because obviously what could it do? It could actually come down just a couple of ticks below it and then shoot up again. You're not going to short until you see what? Lower highs and lower lows. Hopefully a red background, red bars, you know, with our system. But obviously this didn't do that, did it? You're getting higher highs and higher lows all day long. See it? That's the whole day, by the way. Let's just look at it. Low here, high here, same. So it could take this one out, but if it doesn't, you'll start getting higher again. See what it does. Trend line again broken, by the way. Look at that monster day. Higher low than down here, isn't it? Another trend line break right there, by the way. Too late, though. It's the close of the day. I wouldn't have taken that one, but that is a good trend line. Then I'd be out. So that trade cost us a little bit, but it did make some money. They're amazing. Remember, when I take a trend line break, I want it to stay on my break. So that's a good 7, 8, 10 ticks. Takes it out of cost. You're out of the trade right in through there. Could you take another trend line? Absolutely. There's another one right there. Comes back to cost. I'm out again, but it gave some ticks. And that's the end of the day. Can I show the indicator screen so you can take a screenshot? Absolutely. Let me go ahead and bear with me a second. I'm going to get this a little bit larger on the screen so you can see. The indicators that I use every single day in the trading room is the breakout bar color Y, which are our background colors. I use swing high-low, which are these little dashes when a swing is made. I use trailing stops, which are these red dots and also the blue ones. See them right there. I use the background stealth transition, which gives me the green, the red background, and then it gives the other two transition colors. I use trailing stops guidance. What I'd recommend, it's easier. We've already got it set in Viper, where you can just simply go down to line in the sand and mastery, and they're already set to the proper sizes and everything, just like I do on my charts. So instead of using guidance on your stop, you can just do line in the sand and mastery. Same thing. Then I use stealth trend. I use zones because we trade those zones every day in the room. And I use Viper right edge, which is part of platinum. And on VIP right edge, I have everything false except for show them, of course, because you want to show them on the chart. And then I have true for the money bands, and the MML4, which is the band 4. Okay, and that's the way I do my charts every day in the room. Let's see, Steve says, Gary, sometimes you draw tight trends. I do that also, and I get in only to have it go further down, i.e. 917 on your chart. Any way to know when to take a tight trend line? Well, Steve, that's what I was trying to mention there. What you really want to do when you do a tight trend line, okay, you want to at least get, say for instance, if you want a 10 tick or an 8 tick type of trade, okay, let's say that it's only going to retrace 38% or 50% of whatever move it's made. Well, if you only get a 15 tick pullback, let's say that you only got 15 ticks here. Well, by the time you get in, you might not get 5 ticks before it rolls. But if you get some of these moves, let's just go look at some others. Back over here, let's see. Yeah, like this one right here. All right. See this move, both of these moves right here. Let me get rid of this cursor. That's a real good question, and this is something I look at really strongly too. See this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles? That's a 24 tick move. Okay? That's when I'll draw a tight trend line. 20 to 24 ticks, you want a tight trend line. Less than that, you're taking a chance on the market not giving you anything but just a couple of 3 ticks. Because let's say, for instance, let me find another area that didn't work out as well. You said 917, my time? You're talking about right here. If you drew a tight trend line right there, right through there like that. Well, technically that trade still worked out on you if you had any kind of a stop on it. Okay. But remember, even in the room this morning, we had mentioned that a yellow bar probe, we were looking for deeper. We said that live in the room this morning on this one. This is actually where I got out of my trades. I didn't go back in these the rest of the day. I was trading oil at this time. But this trade right here, this is one that can get you. And that was actually a pretty good move down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I would have taken that trade. And let's see how many got him basically at 933.60, came down to 932.80. That's 8 ticks. That's hard to say if I might have clicked out of that trade or not. If it went up and then immediately rolled, I might have killed it with 4 ticks loss. But then watch for the retrace and everything and draw the trend line again and get back in. Don't be afraid of it. You know, but the whole thing is, don't let it go like crazy to the bottom, because at that moment, for instance, let's look at this tight trend line. That's a tight trend line right there. And that happens, believe me, because I get stuck on those too. All right, I know that I've got a swing right here. It's been identified. See that little micro swing? Let's draw a line there. Right across there. All right. That little area should hold, and if it doesn't, this one more than likely will, but that's way too low. So I would probably put my stop at least a couple of ticks underneath there. So if I got in this trade right here, see like that, I'm definitely going to get out if it takes out that line. And more than likely, if the candle rolled over like that, I just made a mistake. Because usually if a trend line gets broken, that candle is going to close to the upside. And if it doesn't close to the upside, the next one, see how it just hit that top, and then they're going to go lower when they do that. But see, it just perfectly hit our line. See that right there? But look how they took it out by a stinking tick. So if you put your stop just a couple of ticks under there, you're still in the trade. See, because that was the swing. But keep in mind, if you're doing that with like 4 contracts, that was $320 down at least on that trade. But when they've made this kind of a monster move, remember we always talk about this too, that's a 70 tick run from there to there. And we talk about it in the trading manual even. If you get a smart run like that, you want a deeper retracement. So, you know, you might even start in a case like that and just put you a trend line on the chart at about a 45 right off the bat and then just see what it does. Kind of watch it potter down. And by the way, you can take a potter entry too. Remember, we talk about those all the time too. Where's your potter on this particular trade? There's a technically not identified. This one is right here. See it? Because it came down lower than the swing. So there's a potter entry right there. Little swing break. You could take it right there. See? Potter works quite a bit too. You're going to get in later though than a trend line break. And a lot of times they'll wick it and then they'll roll back over too. But you know, when these trades move all the way up to like a resistance area, they'll give you some pretty good ticks pretty quickly. And if they don't and they roll over, there's always another entry. But if you find that they are stopping you out a little bit, go a little bit more conservative on it. Because even though we showed all these, this is to show you each trade that you could get into. More than likely, if you got in here, you'd be holding it up still, you know, through this nice run to begin with because you didn't really get stopped out. But if you miss this one, it's just showing you another entry here, another entry here, another entry here, even another entry here. And even to the end of the day, let's see what it's doing right now. All right, let's see. So far you've got a high here, swing here that's technically identified, and they took it out a little bit. See it right there? So are they trying to change trends yet? Time will tell, but not yet. See how it's just barely taking it out? So if they take this swing out, you're kind of expecting this one to hold, and that's where they hit. See it right on that swing? So I would probably be looking, it's not the time of day to trade this, but I'd be looking at this right here. You might even take it when it takes the potter right there. Not this time of night, keep in mind. But if this doesn't take that trend line out, start heading up, then it's going to keep going down. The one thing that makes you nervous on anything like this is you had a high here, lower high, lower low, like an A, B, C retracement, more like a Gartley. So if a trade like that doesn't work out, then just wait to see, for instance, are they going to change trends? They are trying to take out lows. So once they broke this, what we'd like them to do is thrust, retrace back into resistance, and then roll over if they're going to go short. Would I take this short if it just broke this little swing? No. Because what could they do easily? Well, here's your low here, and that was a nice thrust up, right? On the bigger picture, and that's still a higher low than down here. And this is still saying it's long here and here. Platinum is still saying it's long, so I'm not taking shorts yet. Now, would I take shorts if this thrusts down, changes my background color, then comes back and kisses resistance, gives me a trend line to take and rolls over? Yes. But that's not what it's doing. But if it does it, for instance, if it does it by tomorrow morning, we'll take it. These things aren't going to go up forever. Let's see, when you didn't get your deep yellow bar probe you mentioned, would that be a time to leg into a trade? Well, like you're talking about back here where we said that we wanted a deeper trade, this one right here. I expected that actually to go to probably a red bar instead because it had come up quite a bit. But, you know, the one thing about it, if they don't, just, you know, draw the trend lines and see if you can get you a trade, because they'll normally pay out. Now, will they stop you out sometimes? Yes, and you can get them back in them again. Another way you can always do it, if you want to do it more conservatively, wait for these little areas to be taken out, take a trade, and then see if you can get a gusto type trade. You know, anytime they break these little swings, that's not a breakout trade. A breakout trade, we've talked about this 1,000 times. A breakout trade is like this. Let's say you were watching this chart right here, and you happen to say, you know what, if they break this swing, I'm going to take a breakout trade right there. And what do? They come up there, and they take out your little swing like that, and you jumped in the trade, and what do? They pull back. That's a breakout trade. That type of trade will eat you alive. What I look at every breakout trade is a pullback, because a pullback trade will get you back up to resistance again when they've changed trends, right? And that's what you're looking for. Rather than taking a breakout trade, wait for it to break out, pull back. Even if this thing went all the way up to here, I don't care, because I'm going to wait for that breakout, that retracement trade, just like we showed when we first opened the room the webinar tonight. You just don't want to continue chasing those kind of trades. They'll kill you. I used to be a breakout trader. I'm no longer a breakout trader. That was 5 years ago. Gave the markets about $20,000 of my hard-earned money in those days too. And if I remember right, that's why we named the ES the E-mini slop and pour. That's Rich's words for it. He's actually got an acronym for it that's not quite that nice, but I won't say that one. We'll call it the slop and pour. All right, everybody, I hope you got something out of this webinar. Keep in mind, you can do this even in choppy markets. You can make some coin, okay? The only thing I don't recommend in even choppy markets is the one contract bit. Because if you're doing one contract, they're always going to come back to your costs, and then they're going to take off. Or they're going to take you out, and then they're going to take off. Because how many times, if you get into choppiness, do they give you 7 or 8, 10 ticks, and then they pull right back to your cost? It's the most irritating thing in the world. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up. This was recorded. It'll be on the website in about the next hour and a half. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Charles and Rich will open the room tomorrow. And tomorrow should be a good day again, because oil moves good on Thursdays. All right? And watch for your Forex Factory news tomorrow. See if there's any news. Look for your high energy times to check those energy times. They're great. Look at that high energy time right there at 9:37. Remember it this morning? 9:42? Yeah, 9:42. Want to see how good our software is? Look at that. Zone trade. Boom. Off she went. And that was a high energy time. That was that little box, 5-minute high energy time. All right, let's see. Doug, tomorrow morning, Charles opens the room, and Rich will be in roughly around 8 a.m. My time, so 6 o'clock Pacific. So Charles will be opening it up at 5:45. Rich will probably be in by about 6:15, actually. All right. Hope everybody got nicely green today, because with a monster day like today, that's pretty hard to beat, isn't it? Look at that trend. The high energy time, Stephen, that's just some proprietary algorithms and math that Rich does. I mean, Charles and I actually are just in the part of it that sends out the emails and gets the list ready. The high energy times are very proprietary. Rich has a genius way of analyzing markets, and he's able to get those high energy times. I can actually do them myself even. The calculations, it's quite a bit of hand, because even if you did it on a computer, there's still some discretionary to it as far as the way he nails the time so exactly. Basically, he'll get the algorithms telling him, and then he looks at the actual instrument itself. It's pretty interesting. I've watched him. It takes him about 3 hours to do them every single night. And that's something, believe me, that's worth its weight in gold to our members, because they will make you money. All right, let's go ahead and wrap. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Hope you got something out of it. That's the way to be an artist. Isn't that a beautiful Picasso? Abstract art. Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.